Welcome to week 9. It is finally here, and in this video I have 8 players for you to start or sit in this week ahead. Let's get into it. My first player to start is someone that I actually don't think is a very good NFL quarterback, despite what the record is telling you. Bo Nix for the Denver Broncos. Now, I did debate this being Patrick Mahomes, which felt a little bit mad that we're not certain whether or not we should start Patrick Mahomes on a week-to-week basis, but Baltimore are really struggling against opposing quarterbacks. It is their defense that is letting them down. As we saw with Jameis Winston's performance in the last game, he absolutely could throw on them at will. Bo Nix has been getting a lot of his success on the ground, but the Ravens are really struggling against quarterbacks as a whole in terms of fantasy points allowed. So whilst it doesn't seem like this should be the case, this actually does find itself as a little bit of a smash matchup. Now, Bo Nix has performed really well in the last few weeks, as you can see on the screen. So I definitely think in a matchup that we wouldn't naturally consider, Bo Nix has a real chance to get it done, especially if he can get it done on the ground. Now, as I said, I'm not 100% convinced about Bo Nix, the talent, in terms of his future in the NFL. And that might be something I'm going to cover in a Dynasty video coming up relatively soon. But in terms of his fantasy value as a scrambler, as a designed rusher, which is not something we really thought he'd be able to do coming into the league, Bo Nix is actually turning into fantasy gold dust at the minute, so I'd definitely be starting him this week against Baltimore. My sit for this week is someone that I think it's going a little under the radar quite how bad of a fantasy season he's having, mostly because Patrick Mahomes has been really struggling. Anthony Richardson obviously was just benched, but CJ Stroud was being drafted as the QB6, and he is currently the quarterback 15. Now, everything is lining up for him to have a pretty terrible week this week against the New York Jets. To start with, they are the 5th best defense against the quarterback position. They have been incredibly difficult to score against, both for quarterbacks and for wide receivers. So that's a matchup where he potentially could struggle. If you look at Stroud's performance this season, he has only had one game above 20 points. He's had 2 games within the top 10, but one of those was in week 1, where he finished with just under 20 points. So that's really what you want from a quarterback you're going to be starting. And CJ Stroud doesn't really have a path to getting there, or not one that he's shown us an ability to do so far in 2024. And then when you look at the matchup with the weapons as well, you can see everything's really lining up for this to be really disappointing for him. So he's missing Stephon Diggs. He's missing Nico Collins. That's going to be a huge issue for him. Tank Dell has not looked like himself this season, and Tank Dell could find himself up against one of the best corners in the NFL in Sauce Gardner. That is not a matchup that he's going to win. Sauce Gardner is incredibly physical. Tank Dell is someone that's going to struggle against physicality if he's made to play the alpha role in this offense. That's not something he can do. I think of the 3 wide receivers, you would rather any of the others get injured. You'd rather Tank Dell be the one that missed time, because you can sort of replicate that production with John Mechie. He's probably the closest to Tank Dell. Now, they do have Xavier Hutchinson to step into the X role, but I don't know how well that's going to work out for him. So I just think in a low over-under on Thursday night, with a great defense, he's missing all of his weapons. And even when he was thriving, when Nico Collins was on track to be the wide receiver 1, CJ Stroud still wasn't scoring over 20 fantasy points a game. So without Nico, without Diggs, with Tank Dell still struggling, if you can sit him, I don't know if you're willing to, I would be sitting him in this matchup. I really think this could be a bit of a problem for him in week 9. Chuba Hubbard is the RB11 currently on the season, but he has finished outside the top 15 the last 3 weeks. Jonathan Brooks could be back relatively soon, but he isn't yet, so I wouldn't worry about that. What a wasted fancy pick that's looked like in redraft. But they are playing the Saints this week, and the Saints are really struggling against the running back position. The Saints are actually struggling generally as a defense, but the running back position is the one that they're weakest against in terms of fantasy points allowed. Then one of the main reasons that I'm really interested in Chuba Hubbard, though, is just the outrageous volume he's going to see in this matchup. It's probably still Bryce Young at quarterback. I don't know if we've confirmed that based off whether or not Andy Dalton's healthy after the car crash. Diontae Johnson was traded. Diontae Johnson is going to come up a little bit later, actually. So stay tuned for that one, which means they've got Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker. I don't think Adam Thielen's back yet. He's still on IR. They've still got Jatavian Sanders, but like it's not a hugely exciting thing. Those are all rookies. So if they're going to want to try and compete in this game, I was going to say try and win, but I don't know if the Panthers are going to try and win a single game this year. If they want to try and compete, that's going to be on the ground. So Chuba Hubbard is just going to get an outrageous amount of volume. And yeah, it hasn't been pretty the last few weeks, but I think this is a matchup where you can definitely look to have him in your lineup. A player that I'd be looking to sit this week is someone that I've spoken about in the past as absolutely loving, and the underlying metrics of Tank Bigsby are still there. But Travis Etienne is back this week, and Doug Peterson has said that that is his backfield, and no one knows why, but it is his backfield. So he's obviously going to share the work a little bit. They are playing against the Eagles, who are the 5th best team against the running back position, so that's a little bit of a worry. You also think they're probably going to be playing behind. The Eagles' offense has had a little bit of a renaissance, so there's a chance that the Jags have to throw the ball, and that means Travis Etienne is going to be on the field. One of the main reasons that I'm worried about Tank Bigsby is he's had some absolute blow-up games this year, but the only games that he's had where he's finished as a top 10 running back have been where he scored 2 touchdowns. So he's not really getting it done in terms of efficiency on the ground. He's very boom bust, either absolutely exploding with all of the work or struggling and finishing outside the top 30. And I just think, even though he is clearly the better runner on this team, this isn't a question on Tank Bigsby's talent. I think he's way better than Travis Etienne. Doug Peterson and the offense have clearly showed that they want Etienne to be the starting back in Jacksonville. And so they are going to give the majority of the workload to him. So I'm a little worried about what his role is going to look like this week, and they are playing a very stout defense against the run. So he's someone that I would be looking to avoid in week 9. If you are enjoying this content and you would like to see more from me, I would really like to ask if you would consider liking and subscribing. We just hit 200 subscribers, which is amazing. It's only been 2 months. I have a very special Halloween episode coming tomorrow. I've bought a new webcam, which means that I can do this. It's a little bit more fun. So I would love if you would consider being part of me on that journey to get to see me do that a little bit more, and to see the very spooky episode that I have coming out tomorrow. But let's take a look at the wide receiver position. This is my start of the week, not just at the wide receiver position, but my favourite start across all of fantasy football as someone that's a little under the radar. Jakobi Meyers versus Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati they're middle of the road against the wide receiver position, but the last couple of weeks, they have allowed 2 top 25 wide receivers in both 2 weeks. The main thing about this is the huge target share that Jakobi Meyers is going to see going forwards. He had a 25% target share last week against the Rams. The week before against the Rams, and last week against the Chiefs, once Devontae Adams had been traded. So he's going to absolutely feast in this offense, and he's the only talented wide receiver that they have. Now, they do have Brock Bowers, who's obviously exceptional, but chances are the two of them are going to split 25% target share each, and then everything else is going to just be scattered around the rest of the options because they're not hugely talented. The other thing about this matchup is Cincinnati obviously favored. This is the kind of fancy gold that I've spoken about before, where Cincy have a really good offense, a really bad defense, so they're going to score a lot of points early, but you can score points on them. I think the Raiders are going to struggle to score points, but they're going to have to throw the ball because I think Cincy are probably going to get up early because the Raiders defense is awful. So I think there's a chance that with them chasing the game and with Gardner Minshew absolutely willing to just chuck up the ball no matter what happens, there's a real chance that Jakobi Meyers could be a smash in this matchup. I definitely think Brock Bowers as well is going to be a really fantastic start, but he's a really fantastic start every single week because he's amazing. Jakobi Meyers, I think, is someone that people are going to struggle with a little bit more. He's been injured on and off this season. He's not really thrived. Did score a touchdown last week, which was obviously quite exciting. But I think this is a matchup where he can really, really show out and help you win a week in week 9. So I teased it earlier about Diontae Johnson, and I wonder if you were thinking about whether he was going to be a start or a sit. Diontae Johnson is a sit for me this week. He obviously, as you'll be aware, was just traded from Carolina to the Ravens for essentially a discarded flip-flop and a pack of Watsits that someone had out the back of their house. But he obviously was traded on Tuesday in the game on Sunday, so having to fly over, he probably will practice today. This is being recorded on Wednesday, but that's not a huge amount of time to get up to speed with what can be quite a complex offense with Todd Monken. And we've seen Lamar Jackson struggle to establish chemistry with new wide receivers early on before. So I'm a little worried. I also... I was going to record a video on this specifically, but to talk about it here, I'm not entirely sure that I like the fit for Diontae Johnson. I think for his fancy value, I think this is definitely a downgrade. But in terms of what he does, I think you can either run him out of the slot as sort of a shifty route runner who can get open quickly, and that's a Flowers game, or you can use his long speed and open up his legs a little bit, and that's Rashad Bateman. So I just think he profiles quite similarly to what they already have. Now, you can't have too many weapons, so I think that's fine, but I worry about him this week coming off the trade and coming off what's essentially a short week. Well, he didn't play last week, but being traded on Tuesday and then playing on Sunday. Now, they might have some designed reads for him to get him up to speed in the offense, but we just saw with DeAndre Hopkins, who is twice the receiver that Diontae Johnson is, or at least has been in the past, struggle in the first week with a new team. We've even seen Devontae Adams struggle in the first couple of weeks with a new team, and he's played with the quarterback before, so I am definitely a little bit worried about Diontae Johnson, especially when they're going against the defense that allows the least points to the wide receiver. I think he's going to struggle this week. Taysom Hill is my start of the week at the tight end position. Now, this is strange because Carolina are actually the best team against the tight end position. I think this comes from the fact that they are so bad against the run that teams basically don't have to throw against them. But as we know, Taysom Hill is not actually a tight end. He is a hybrid quarterback, running back, fullback, tight end, personal pass protector, gunner on punt returns. Like he's everything. He's just a complete Swiss Army knife. Now, Carolina are so bad against the run, and I think obviously they like to run the ball with Taysom Hill, especially around the goal line. This is basically an absence of me being able to say start Alvin Kamara, because I think everyone knows to start Alvin Kamara. But the thing I will touch on with Taysom Hill is that the Saints are so banged up on all different areas of the offense. Now, we think Derek Carr is going to be back. Spencer Rattler was benched. Jake Haener is Jake Haener. Alvin Kamara is playing with a broken hand. Juwan Johnson just got injured. Kendre Miller just got injured. Like, they are very, very banged up on offense. And as we touched on, like, Taysom Hill can do everything. I mean, not particularly well, aside from rushing the ball on the goal line, but he can pass, he can catch, he can definitely rush. So there's a chance that this could end up being a bit of a Taysom game, and he's someone that I'm really happy to pick up off waivers, start, and then drop immediately for next week. He has these weird blow-up games every single year, and I think against the Panthers, when he's essentially a big-bodied running back, I'd be willing to start him. I think he has a real chance to be the tight end one this week. But if it's not National Tight Ends Day, it's very, very easy to be the tight end one on a week. Now, if you've watched my channel before, you'll know that this is essentially a Hunter Henry propaganda channel. He has been my recommended waiver pickup multiple weeks in a row. I've had him on as a start on the Start Sit show before. I said I've had him on. He's not been a guest on the show before, but if you're watching Hunter, I live across the ocean from you. If you want to come over, we can carve pumpkins together tomorrow. But he really thrived with Drake May. He definitely struggled with Jakobi Brissett under center. Now it's going to be Jakobi Brissett under center with Drake May in concussion protocol, so probably gonna struggle to play this week. My main issue is Hunter Henry has been quite touchdown dependent, not just in this year, but in every year of his career in the NFL. And this has the lowest over-under of the week, Titans-Patriots, which is a game that no one should win, but a team has to, or they can tie. But I generally, my feeling is to bench every single player in this game. These teams, especially without Drake May, have a way of just sucking the life out of football games. So, yeah, I wouldn't be touching Hunter Henry this week. I think he's really going to struggle in this matchup, and with Brissett at quarterback as well. So that is going to do it for my Week 9 start sits. If you have any questions about the players, feel free to pop them in a comment down below. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a great time in Week 9, and I will see you next time.